Voices from Oxford has come to Balliol College today to talk with the distinguished political economist and former master of Balliol College, Andrew Graham. Andrew, in addition to all your other interests and duties, you've recently become the executive chair of the Europaeum, which is a very interesting sounding title, but not one that many people, I think, are completely familiar with. So can you tell us a little bit about what the Europaeum is?
Yes, it was created 25 years ago by Roy Jenkins. He'd been the first president of the European Commission and then became a chancellor of Oxford University. And at that stage, just after the collapse of the Berlin Wall, European idealism was at its height. And Roy thought, wouldn't it be good if Oxford led the way in bringing together a number of European universities? And the early members were the Sorbonne and Bologna, and then we rapidly became a dozen or so. And we've been doing a great many very interesting things for this 25 years, summer schools, colloquia, joint degrees, seminars. The big difference between us as a European network and some of the others like Coimbra or Leru is that we focus primarily on students, bringing students together to discuss contemporary issues.
That's a really worthwhile ambition. I guess it runs below the radar a little bit in some people's minds, but you've got some plans for changing that.
We sat down about a year or so ago. When you've been in existence for 25 years, it's a good time to pause. Brexit happened, which also makes you rethink everything. And I think what struck me was that we either needed to, after Brexit, to say, look, this is sort of the end of the road, or we needed to say, on the contrary, you need something like the Europaeum even more. And if we were going to be even more, the question was, how did we do it? And I and a couple of other people had the idea of saying, well, if we've been doing these very good summer schools, colloquia, etc., but as one-off events, why not put them into a structured program and offer them to people doing doctorates in the individual universities, but they could come to 4 modules in 1 year and 4 modules in another year and do a sort of coherent program in European studies.
So this is the scholarship program?
There will be Europaeum scholarships. I mean, being completely straightforward about it, everything has to be paid for somehow.
Yes.
And so we thought that we would have fees for coming on the course, but students have already got loads of debt.
So they don't want to pay this.
So we have to raise scholarships. So we've got enough money to start, and we're starting this January. We're going to admit just 30 as the first cohort.
Very competitive, I guess, if it's across a bunch of universities across Europe.
And over the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've been visiting as many of the members as I could. Leiden, Geneva, Prague, Madrid, etc. And you're quite right. The universities suddenly realise that they want their students to look very good on this programme. So there's a competition between the universities as well as a competition between the students to get selected.
So we better make sure that Oxford gets enough scholars onto this programme, shouldn't we?
We're going to have a discussion about that very soon.
Very good, very good. So you said it's a fee-charging course, essentially, or adjunct course.
Yes.
And you've managed to get some donors to help you with the scholarships for this. I imagine that might be very attractive to some donors.
It is actually, in the current climate where everybody's out there, it's been so far quite hard work.
Right.
One of the main sources of funding has come from the Templeton World Charity Foundation.
Yes.
And another has come from private individuals, but they didn't want their names broadcast because suddenly everybody's going and knocking on their doors.
Okay, yes, I suppose they won't have your name here on the brand. It's the European scholarship.
Well, very attractively, none of the people providing money have wanted to name the scholarship.
There's many real philanthropists like that.
Just willing to do it. I mean, one of the questions that I've had in other universities is, do you mean you pay the scholarship to the student? And the answer is no, this is not a fellowship.
Right, not a stipend.
Not a stipend, but it covers all of their travel.
Right.
Because we're going to teach it at different universities.
Okay.
All of their tuition, all of their accommodation, and it's probably worth about 10,000 euros, something like that.
There's all the additional costs of actually putting on this scholarship programme.
Absolutely.
That's very, very nice. But it'll run, as it were, attached to each student. Each scholar on the programme will be in receipt of one of these scholarships, and it'll flow into the system.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. So what is going to be on the programme? What are they going to learn, and how are they going to learn it?
One of the key features of the programme is that the people who will be eligible will be anybody doing a doctorate with some relationship to European studies in any field of the humanities or any field of the social sciences. So we will bring people from many disciplines together and from many universities and many countries. So it's multidiscipline, multi-country, multi-university. And in order to make this work, the bit that intellectually appeals to me is that I tend to think that in most university work, in most doctorates, people are trying to reach the frontiers of knowledge. This is a sort of centrifugal process going outwards.
Yes, that is how it feels, isn't it? Yes.
And what we're going to do is make it centripetal.
Right.
We'll take a policy
all threads
problem,
together.
say migration or inequality or national identity.
Right.
You can't possibly talk about migration without bringing together political scientists, sociologists, lawyers, economists, etc.
Even economists.
Even economists.
That sounds a very exciting program. I guess it'll evolve as the participants go through it and as...
There are two other goals of this new initiative that are worth mentioning. We hope that these very talented young people are people who want to do something to shape the future of Europe.
Yes.
And so one of the things we're going to be assessing in choosing them is, are they people who seem to have the kind of qualities you'd want in those roles? I'm not going to name what those qualities should be. There could be many.
They could.
But we don't want to pick people who are just extremely clever, but might be extremely selfish.
So that notion reminds me of something that we're familiar with in Oxford a little bit, those sort of Rhodes scholarships that also try and find people that have more than purely academic distinction too. That was always the tradition. I presume it still is. And you, of course, were awarded.
I mean, I've been extremely lucky in my life. I think in forming this programme, I probably brought some from my previous government work, some from lots of years in Balliol doing admissions, but undoubtedly, looking at the way the Rhodes Scholars work, both the way that they get people from all around the world, and there's a sort of decentralised admission process. We've done a bit of that in the Europaeum. But to the real crunch of your question, yes, the Rhodes Scholars have this phrase, fight the world's fight.
Ah, yes.
And I think we want these Europaeum scholars to be fighting Europe's fight. Understanding their differences, but understanding how to collaborate.
There couldn't be a more important time to be doing this.
Well, this is what's so tremendously exciting about it. And I have to say, a bit self-centeredly, I did push the idea.
Yes.
But I've been amazed to discover both how much faculty and students, whether I'm in Spain, Germany, Switzerland...
They're all getting it.
They've got the point. Yeah. I mean, Europe needs to do something. Yes. And you need to start with the young. Yeah.
Well, I think many people are going to be watching this with a great deal of interest and hope. And we'll hope to revisit it in the future and see how successful it's been. Thank you very much, Andrew Gray.
Thank you very much.